Hey everyone, so in this module I just want to go over some of the basic tools that you'll find yourself using during your affiliate marketing endeavors, and basically just give you a run through of how to set them up, where they are, and why you might actually consider using them. So to get started, I'll just give you a basic overview of what we're going to go over. We will touch on design and image tools, tools for file management, various tools that you're going to use daily, like desktop browsers, for example, and various plugins, and then various things related more to the affiliate and technical side, like coding and HTML editing, server management, and so on. Right, so let's get straight into it. Firstly, the first thing I want to actually get you guys using is LastPass. So this is something which I try to force on everyone. So LastPass is a way of securely storing all your passwords. You can see it here. Essentially, you should not be using your browser for storing your passwords. This is just a very terrible idea. So if you don't currently have a secure password management solution, go get this now. Install it in all your browsers and start learning how to use it. It's actually very, very easy to use. Now, moving on from LastPass, you can see I have a lot of tabs open here, so I have a lot of things I'm just going to skim through. I'm not going to give you deep insight into any of them. They're just things that I would recommend you check out and consider using. Okay, moving on to our Firefox extensions. The first one is NoScript, which you can see up here. This is it here. So NoScript is probably my favorite add-on for a browser ever. So when it comes to things like antivirus and anti-malware, people are always wondering, what the best antivirus is and all these kinds of things. The reality is the best antivirus and security suite for your computer is you. Almost every compromise situation where your computer gets compromised comes down to something that you did or you allowed to happen. The second best security solution for me, or in my opinion, is locking down the way code actually executes on web pages. So almost all of the infections that people will get will come from websites, right? Or from some download that was initiated on a website, or something that they downloaded from a website without realizing what they're actually doing. NoScript essentially disables JavaScript by default on everything. So you kind of have to whitelist all the sites that you're using, which you do through here. Once you actually whitelist something, which you can do temporarily or permanently, then it doesn't bother you again. It's kind of a little annoying when you first start using it and learning how to use it, but once you've kind of been using it for a while, it's indispensable. In terms of the options and configuration, I'll show you what I have. What do I do? I think in appearance, you can just see what I actually have here. These are the defaults. I think what I do is change the notifications. I don't like having messages at the bottom. I don't really care about blocked strips. And what else do we have? There's all these various settings that you can actually use in here. Automatically reload affected tabs when permissions change, reload the current tab only. So when you whitelist something, it's going to reload. You can turn this on and off. Sometimes it's a little disruptive and annoying if you do that. Open permissions when your mouse hovers, so you can change the functionality there. What I tend to like doing is having the hover effect, so that I can actually whitelist globally when I want to. You can also make it so when you click that button, it whitelists everything on the page. Anyway, moving on. The next one is AdBlock Plus. Obvious reasons, block ads. All websites are just nicer to actually browse, and everything's kind of a little snappier because you're not loading so many ads. Of course, you're going to want to turn this off on sites where you do want to see the ads, where you're spying, and of course on advertising platforms and tools where AdBlock might actually break the functionality of those sites because of the URL blocking. Okay, moving on. Communication. The first one, which many of you will already be aware of, is Slack. So Slack is ideal for teams. If you have a team of people, say at least 3 or 4 of you, Slack is just a much better platform for communication. The chat system within the AMC platform, it's kind of trying to emulate Slack because Slack is kind of the king of team-based chat at the moment. So go check it out. It also has inbuilt calling now, voice calling on mobile and desktop. If you have teammates in there, you never need to use Skype again, and it is so much better in so many ways. Now, if you do need to do some sort of call between yourself and some other people and do screen sharing and things like that, then I would recommend using Zoom rather than Skype. Again, Skype just kind of sucks for a lot of things. I wish Skype would kind of die. Zoom tends to have much better actual screen sharing and recording. The call quality is quite good, and it's very easy to actually just record the call and get a video spit out at the end afterward. Now, when it comes to emails, when you set up yourself as an affiliate marketer, you're generally going to make a business email, which is something we'll go over later, and you're probably going to end up having quite a few different email accounts that you work with. For managing a lot of different emails, you're going to want some sort of client, right? Unless you're using something like Zoho Mail, where they have quite a nice web-based mail platform. When it comes to Windows, I would suggest using Mailbird as your actual client for that. It's not perfect, but it's kind of the best that I've used. The only other one which I would consider is probably Outlook, but it's up to you. If you're on Mac, on OS 10, then AirMail. 100% AirMail is the best email client for Mac. Absolutely love it. And the iOS app is good as well. Sadly, none of these email clients are like perfect. There's always certain things which are a little bit annoying. In my opinion, AirMail is better than Mailbird in a number of ways. But ultimately, it's up to you to test these and find out which ones you actually like. Now, these tools are a little bit peripheral, but something I wanted to mention because I just kind of like improving the way people actually do things. So if you download a lot of various things, whether it be TV shows or videos or even like YouTube clips or whatever, one of the best downloaders you can use, in my opinion, is JDownloader. If you want this, get JDownloader 2 and Google the adware free installer, which will take you to this page where you can find these installers. I'll provide links for all of these pages and things. You don't need to worry about that, and you can just ask me if you couldn't find anything. JDownloader is great in that you can add premium accounts to the actual application so that it logs into things like Uploaded, RapidGator, Mega, all of these kinds of sites automatically if you have premium accounts and you want to speed up downloading and so on. Now, on that note, for accelerating downloading, one system I really like is Real Debrid. I think it's French for real download, whatever. This is basically a system which it's kind of like an affiliate marketing system in the sense that it arbitrages things for you. In this case, instead of advertising, it's files. So when I go to download various things, whether it's from a free file host like one of these here, or whether it's something which I've uploaded somewhere else, I essentially have this account. They download it for me to their servers, and then I download from them with unlimited speeds and no caps on anything. The account can be put in JDownloader, and it kind of automates everything. So I essentially copy a link to my clipboard, and bam, my JDownloader's processing it. And when I go to download it, in the background, everything goes through this system, then comes to me. I don't have to waste time with capture codes and all this kind of stuff, and it's really awesome. The other thing I really like is their torrent system. So I know a lot of people still use torrents for a lot of things. I personally haven't used torrents in like 7 or 8 years. I don't like torrents. I think they're very unreliable. They're peer-to-peer and rely on other people's connections. They're also extremely easy to track. I mean, if you're downloading anything that you're pirating, for example, torrents are kind of the worst thing to use. You can use Tor and random things like that, but it's a huge waste of time, and you get slow speeds and so on. Real Debrid actually has a torrent system where they download it for you, and then you download it from them. And I really like that for a lot of different things, even for large, legitimate files that are, some sort of distribution of Linux or something like that, and it's huge and you don't really want to wait for the torrent. You can do it through here. Okay, moving on. So organizing windows. There's obviously a lot of tools that you can use for affiliate marketing and for the general things that you're doing. But then there's also ways to actually just streamline and improve the functioning of your operating system or the user experience and the visuals. So if you're using something like Windows 8 or 8.1 or 10, I myself am using 10, you probably hate the Start menu, right? So check out something like Classic Shell or Start 8 or Start 10. I'm using Start 10, which you can see here. If I open my Start menu, it looks like this, which is really nice. I prefer this kind of thing. So yeah, go get something like Start 10 and you'll be fine. Now another tool that I want to bring up is Stardock Fences. So Start 10 and Stardock Fences are by the same company. You can kind of get a pack from them, like Object Desktop, I think. I think if you come to this page here and you go to buy something, I think they try to upsell you with a heavy discount to sort of package. We'll see if they do that. I'm going to do get Start 10 to add that to my cart, see what they do. There we go. Upgrade to Object Desktop. So you can actually get that for $20 if you want it instead of $50, and it's pretty good. It's kind of worth it. One other thing I really like is Stardock Fences. So this is just a really cool app for organizing your desktop. If you're one of those people where your desktop is terrible, and I'd probably slap you if I saw it, then Stardock Fences is great. I'll show you what it looks like. So here you can see I have organized my desktop into these little fences, which you can kind of move around and organize in various different ways. And I think this is really cool. It's a really nice way to keep your desktop kind of consolidated. You can make one of these fences be the default. So when you save things to desktop, it automatically goes into that place. So I tend to click and drag, make a fence and call it 10 or something like that. There's my weird overlay thing, which I'll get to in a moment. And then I can make this the default fence somehow. Place all new icons on this fence by default. And now if I was to say make a new Word document, and then click out, it automatically goes in there. So that's really nice to make it so that things you save to your desktop that are new always go to a very specific place. Another cool thing is folder portals. So I can click and drag, make a folder portal. Say I'll do it to this folder here, for example. And that's now basically a window into that folder. So that folder is actually in here, which we'll get to in a moment. If I make a new file in here, it's made in there. So it's really cool. It's a nice way to kind of have a project you're currently working on or something like that on the desktop without having to actually move lots of shortcuts there and without having to go into that folder directly to make changes. You can also click and hold Alt to make a folder portal as well, which is really, really cool. Okay, the other one I want to mention there is Bins by OneUp. This is not something I'm actually using at the moment because it was causing a few glitches with Windows 10 after an upgrade, and I haven't installed the updated version yet, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, you hover over an icon and it can show a list of apps. So you can kind of consolidate, much like Fences, all of your apps into little buckets. And the last one within this category I want to mention is Clover, which we sneakily already just saw. So Clover is essentially a modification for Windows Explorer. Basically makes it more like Chrome. So when you're trying to manage a lot of different files and folders, generally you're going to have to jump between different places, right? Windows Explorer and even Finder on OS X don't really make this that easy, but what would be great is if you had tabs, right? So with Clover, you now basically have a Chrome-like interface where you can open things in tabs. You can middle-click things to open them in a new tab, just as you would expect with Chrome. You can middle-click to close them, and so on. I believe you can double-click or something like, I can't even remember, to do them side by side as well. If you're using OS X, I think Extra Finder is the comparable tool that you want to look at. Moving on. Okay, screenshots. So on to kind of image-related tools. When it gets to sharing feedback with people or capturing images or swipe files and things like that, you're going to need a screenshot tool. The best one by far that you should use is Lightshot. I know people use a lot of different things like Jing and so on, but I've kind of tested them all, and just trust me, Lightshot is just better. I like it for a number of reasons. Pretty easy. Once you install it, hit print screen, and I don't know if you can actually see the print screen overlay, but you can just make some sort of area, select it, and then once you select it, you can draw things on it if you want. That's not working since I'm kind of screen sharing at the moment, which is not that surprising. And then after that, you can hit Control S to save it to a predefined location, Control C to put it on the clipboard. So if I hit Control C, it's kind of being a bit weird at the moment because I think I have so many things kind of recording my screen and it's a bit confused. But you can copy it directly to the clipboard, or you can hit Control D, which is probably not going to work. Which one is that? I think it's that one there. There we go. And it starts uploading it to the cloud, essentially, online, which makes sharing it very, very handy in terms of getting a link. And once that appears, I will open it. There we go. And there you go. There is my screenshot. And if you want to get the kind of raw image link, just right-click, copy image location, or go to view image, and you can see there is your link. Perfect. Okay, moving on. So Lightshot is great. If you want to do screen recording, so actual video rather than just an image, there's a few different tools you can use. Camtasia is probably the easiest to use in terms of just being kind of user-friendly. I don't use it at the moment. At the moment I'm using other things because for me I have a lot of audio devices and Camtasia just seemed to not like that and it never wanted to use my studio microphone when recording. But in any case, it's very easy to use, so check it out. The other tool that I tend to like more is Open Broadcaster software. So you can go get OBS Studio and use this. It's pretty easy to use once you learn how to use it, and it's perfect for streaming. If you want to stream to Twitch and to YouTube and stuff like that, this is what you would use. This is what I will probably use for live streams, depending. It's definitely what I'm going to be using. So in terms of that, we can just fire it up. It's very simple to use. The settings are a bit more advanced, but easy to actually figure out once you get into them. There we go. Select, add an actual source, display capture to capture my monitor. You can set all your various settings in here. For output, this is where you set the bit rate in terms of, I guess, how much data you have per second for that actual video. And you can stream or record, play with advanced settings, and so on. Right, that's by the way, get out of there. The other thing that I want to mention is shadow play. This is kind of something specific to NVIDIA graphics cards. It's what I'm using right now for recording this. It's kind of the most efficient way to possibly record your screen. Records at very, very high bit rates with virtually no overhead in terms of CPU usage and performance impact. This is kind of the holy grail that gamers are now using for streaming their games to Twitch and live recording, because it uses the video card output directly and it is just extremely efficient. It also has this cool thing called, I think it's called shadow play, or instant playback or something like that, where the video card can kind of always be caching up to like 15 minutes of footage. And say you're doing something and you realize, oh my god, I want that footage, you can kind of hit a button and it will dump the last 15 minutes of footage straight to your disk. That is just really, really cool. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, one other thing I do want to mention is with uploading images quickly, you can use Lightshot, of course, to actually upload directly, or you can use something like Imgur Tools. So if you go to imgur.com/tools, there's a lot of different things here. I can't recall which one specifically I like. It might be this one. Yes, it is. So this one adds a right-click option to image files, or essentially to the context menu in Windows, which lets you upload folders in Windows, or just a bulk selection of images as a gallery or to Imgur. So this is really useful if you have all these images that you just kind of want to get online and you just need simple Imgur links or something that you can throw away afterward. And the last thing I wanted to mention related to screen capping, which I kind of forgot, is highlighting your pointer, which you can see I'm doing now, and I have clicks kind of highlighting, and I have this cool kind of overlay thing going on. For that, if you're using Camtasia, you can actually kind of highlight the cursor afterward, which is cool. But if you're not using Camtasia and you still want to do that, I recommend using something like Pointer Focus. Hey, continuing with images. When you are dealing with ad images or you're making landing pages, chances are there's going to be a lot of image content that you're dealing with. And generally speaking, you're going to want to optimize these images to increase the performance of your pages. For that, you need Kraken, which is found at kraken.io. Kraken is just amazing. It's probably my favorite online web tool that's design or image related, period. It's just really, really cool and free, as long as the files aren't too big. So if you go here and try the free web interface, nope, you can throw an image in here. I'll just get an example from here. So this one, which is about 800 kilobytes, throw him in there. What happens? He uploads, he processes. We'll go over these later as well, when we're kind of in a more relevant section of the actual course. What is this doing? It's still uploading. Maybe, oh no, there we go. So it cracked it down to 728. I just realized why that compression is so low. Usually the percentage is much higher. It's because I've actually already compressed these with Kraken a few months ago, I think, or a month ago to save space in my Dropbox, and they're originally something like 4 megabytes, which was crazy. Okay, another tool that I'd like to mention is Background Burner. It's a tool to essentially remove the process images and try and remove the background material from them. It's kind of a nice tool if you're not very good at Photoshop and you actually want to do this, or you just kind of want to speed up the process in terms of trimming around the edges of files to make them transparent. In any case, a good thing to have in your repository of tools. Right, and the last purely image-related tool that I want to talk about is Visual Similarity Duplicate Image Finder. A bit of a random tool, and not one people tend to actually know about, not one that is used that often, but something which I really like. And once I found it, I was just like, oh my god, I'm never going to not have this tool on standby. Essentially what it's for is finding similar images and letting you clean up shop and delete them, right? So it kind of makes sense. You might have situations where you have a large number of images, or you have images that are different versions, but different resolutions, and you kind of want to just clean up. This tool is great for that. So I'll show you it here. Here we go. I have to buy a license or something like that, so I'll fix that and swap back. Okay, so I ended up just going to their website and downloading the newest version, which is presumably a demo and a trial, and just installed that. So let's say we take this images folder in here as a test, these images here, and let's say I select all of these and I copy them, and then I paste them again, and I paste them again. We have all of these various copies, and now I'll select them all and I'll rename and just something random. There we go, we have all, and I'll select some of these again, and some of these again. There we go, so they all have kind of random names, right? And they're all clearly duplicates, and if I was going to go through and try and delete the duplicates here, obviously I'm not going to have the most fun time if the file names and things are all kind of mixed up. But what I can do is use this tool, which I have just mentioned. I'm going to drag and drop the folder in here, get rid of that, and then I'm going to do tick that, I suppose. And scan subfolders. Okay, let's do a visual comparison and start a scan. Demo version. Yeah, okay. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to add it again. Let's do hash. Go. There we go. So obviously the visual comparison, I guess, is blocked in the demo, whatever. So now it comes up with all of these files here. various hidden features in the demo. What you can do is basically auto check things. So I can auto check things based on a certain rule, like smaller dimensions, newer dates. So let's say images with with older dates will auto check. There's nothing select. You have disabled auto check for all folders in the folders list. Okay, auto check. That's what that filter does apparently. And now you can see here it's auto checked all of the older files. So only the ones that I kind of duplicated last that have a later timestamp are going to be the ones that get deleted. And then I'll delete those checked files. It probably won't let me. Anyway, that's fine. That's a cool tool to use and to know about. Moving on. So, as for design related stuff, your best friend when it comes to everything design related is 100% Adobe Creative Cloud. So in the past, the Adobe creative tools like Photoshop and Illustrator and so on, they used to be extremely expensive. As a designer, you were looking at thousands of dollars just for these tools. I believe the Adobe CS Master Collection, like 8 years ago or however long ago, was $10,000 or something ridiculous that no one could really afford. So there was a lot of piracy and things like that. Recently they moved to a subscription-based model, which is just so much better and much more affordable for almost everyone. So if you go to Adobe Creative Cloud and go to their website, you can see their prices. They are $50 per month, provided you sign up to an annual plan rather than monthly. Given the huge price difference, you definitely kind of want the annual plan, the 12-month subscription. This is kind of a set of tools, like access to everything. The value is just absolutely massive. If you're currently at a university and you have a student ID and email, then you can get it even cheaper and get it for $20 a month. That's something I did at university, and it's great. It's so cheap. For $20 a month, the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite is probably your most, it's probably your best investment when it comes to tools that you're going to use creatively for affiliate marketing. Now it comes with a number of different tools that are going to be extremely relevant to you. The main one is Photoshop. We're going to do a separate bootcamp on Photoshop. Just know that Photoshop is kind of the absolute #1 best program you should have for creative editing and image and ad creation. There's a lot of different tools you can use that are free and so on, but I mean, come on, there's nothing that actually compares to Photoshop in terms of how powerful it is. The learning curve can be quite high. If I open Photoshop, you can see it here. It's kind of one of those things where once you learn how to use it, your learning curve on all of the Adobe tools, or most of them, is dramatically lower because the way that they work is just very, very similar. So it's honestly very easy to use. Again, we'll do a Photoshop bootcamp. You just learn hotkeys, learn various things, and it'll be much easier to actually use. Funnily enough, I can't seem to do certain things so easily when I have all these video recording tools going. But anyway, that's by the by. Moving on. The other tool that amongst the Adobe suite, which will probably be very, very useful to you, is Adobe Muse, which we can see here. I will again do a tutorial on this. Adobe Muse is always being updated. I'm not quite sure where they're at right now, but it looks like they're kind of improving their ability to create responsive sites. So sites that change their view depending on the device or the device width that you're on. Again, we'll go over this in more detail a lot later, but you can get these tools, install them, and start playing around with them. Now, the tools are served through the Adobe Creative Cloud app, which you can see here. So you can basically install and update everything in one app, which is great. It's kind of like Steam for games, but for Adobe apps. And one extra addition, which is really nice, is Typekit. So if you go to Assets and then Fonts, you can actually install Typekit fonts to use locally on your PC in your design. And frankly, there's a lot of web fonts which are just a lot nicer than typical system fonts. The other option is Google Fonts. With Google Fonts, you can actually download the fonts, but most people don't actually realize this. So if you search for Google Fonts and open up anything, let's say we want Open Sans, we add it to collection, we go to Review, that is all fine, let's go to Use. And if you tick various things that you want, you can actually click this little button here and click this zip file and download directly. You can also use Sky fonts to do this, but I wouldn't recommend using Sky fonts and Typekit and so many font syncing programs. I mean, you don't need to, so I would stick with using Typekit. Okay, there's lots of other tools that you can use within Creative Cloud, which you can find in here. I mean, there's bajillions of them. I'm sure I'm not even seeing all of them. All apps. There's various other things as well, but it's up to you to go and play with those. Illustrator is probably my other favorite app, so Photoshop and Illustrator, but Illustrator is more for vector-based things and is not so relevant to you. Now, in terms of landing page design, again, we are going to start with Muse, or this is what I'm going to show you initially, just to get you into a visual design flow. Muse is great for that, and if you use Photoshop, it's very easy to kind of understand how Muse works. The interface, the layout, the way it works is very, very similar, even the sidebars and so on, which I can hopefully expand out. These are all very similar between the Adobe apps, which makes things nice. Now, for responsive design, there are designs that work on mobile and work on various devices. There's a lot of tools out there which just aren't that great. There's Webflow and Macaw and Pinegrow, Coffee Cup Responsive, there's Edge Reflow, which I'm not even sure its status anymore. There's all these various apps, and later on you can download these and test them. I mean, why not? Maybe there's one that actually fits with the way that you operate. But ultimately, I kind of feel like there's no tool that can really replace actually having developers who can make responsive designs for you and actually test them and configure them based on the best practices that we know and actually operate by. There's various other tools like Lead Pages and Instapage, ClickFunnels and so on, which are for hosted page creation. These are good for certain purposes. They're not very good for one-off campaign landers, which are very simple and ad hoc and just for a very small test campaign. Things that you typically want to be very lightweight and host on your own system. These kind of systems aren't that great for that. So we'll go through that again at a later time, but we'll be using Muse, exporting landers, and then moving from there. Okay, moving on. File management. So this kind of again falls in line with me trying to push things on people because I know they might be doing things in a terrible way. Dropbox. So any kind of service which actually gives you file redundancy is a must. So there's two reasons why I would suggest using something like Dropbox. One, the obvious, the file redundancy, not having your files only on your computer in one specific location. And secondly, synchronization. So having access to the same files on your mobile device or on other computers, all synchronized, all kept up to date, and so on. I mean, this is great. I really like Dropbox. There's other options like Google Drive, for example, but I really don't like Google Drive. And I also find that they don't have very good file recovery mechanisms. Google Drive is very good when it comes to Google Docs and Sheets and actually sharing files for editing with other people. For that, it's very, very easy because everyone kind of has a Google account. Not everyone uses Dropbox, but I really do not recommend it for actual syncing and storage of your work. CrashPlan is another example, but I believe CrashPlan is more like backing up your entire PC constantly and iteratively. It's not really the same. Just trust me, get Dropbox. And you can kind of see my Dropbox in the corner here. It's not signed in or anything, but it is great. I really, really love it. Now, moving on, an FTP tool. So when you're uploading landing pages and you're doing various things related to campaigns, you're going to have to communicate with your server in some way and upload files. For that, use FileZilla. It is just good. It is just great. There's not really any reason to use anything else. It is awesome. If you're uploading to Amazon S3 for whatever, then use CyberDuck. For that, CyberDuck is kind of amongst the... It's probably the best client that I've found for that. Uploading to S3 is always a huge pain. I kind of hate working with S3 in that respect, but it is so useful. But for that, I would use CyberDuck. Now, for connecting to servers, I mentioned FileZilla. Another service which I like is mRemote-ng. This is kind of like the partner in crime to FileZilla, and it's more for SSH connections to your actual server. Here's FileZilla, for example. Pretty simple. You can save various entries in here that you can then connect to on demand. This is just stuff from a old AMC. mRemote-ng is essentially a graphical user interface for PuTTY, which some of you may or may not be aware of. It's essentially a way to just connect via console to your server. And again, you can save the details. And the main reasons I like mRemote-ng are because they can save the details, much like in FileZilla, where you can kind of have multiple connections in here with different names to just connect to servers on the fly. It of course has tabs, so you can open in tabs like so. I doubt that's going to actually connect because that server probably doesn't exist. And the actual console interface in here is just bigger and nicer than normal PuTTY. And of course you can run these guys side by side to do various things. If you're using Mac or OS X, there's no mRemote-ng, but you could use something like Shuttle, I believe, as an app that works well in that capacity. Okay, moving on to web pages and editing web pages. Understand that web pages are just all text. The entire code of web pages and everything, it's just text that you can edit. So it goes without saying that for the majority of your editing, you're going to need a text editor, right? One of the best text editors that I can recommend is Sublime Text. It is great. You can find it here, just sublimetext.com. Very easy to install and very configurable and flexible. There's certain things you can do, like using snippets and regular expressions to kind of streamline various things. And there's various extensions which can help out. Another good editor is Atom, but I wouldn't recommend that unless you're kind of quite savvy with actual coding and programming. With Sublime Text, you can go download the, I'm not sure what's happening there, my internet has died or something. So once you've downloaded Sublime Text, you can do various things. I'm just going to open it up. You can hit Control-Shift-P. Well, okay, not that many controls and shifts. Control-Shift-P, write install for install package, and hit enter or click on that, and you can see it sort of going crunch, crunch, crunch down there. What I want to do is install a package called Color Sublime, which you can see here. Click that and you can see it's installing down here in the left hand corner. Now Color Sublime is just a theme plugin for Sublime Text. And you can see the various themes here. I don't like browsing the themes here. I would much rather do it within Sublime Text itself. Reason being, you can kind of see live previews and you can find the one that actually works well for you. So let's say I open a example file, this one here, and it looks like this. I'll just increase the font size a little bit for you guys. There we go. So it looks like this, and usually most people like to work with dark backgrounds and bright colors because it just makes things easier to actually see. What I can do is hit Control-Shift-P, and I can say install and then Color Sublime install theme. It's going to crunch and find all of the actual themes and then load a big list for me to scroll through. There we go. Now I can actually just hit down and go through all of these and find one that I want. I like a dark background. I like for it generally to highlight script tags, which is the stuff down here. I tend to want to see it stick out. You can see this one highlights comments. Where's one that highlights scripts? Can be quite hard to find one. There's one there, for example. I like things like that. It makes it easy to see where JavaScript is, and so on. There's a lot of themes that you can go through. Sorry for the epilepsy just there. But yeah, that's probably my favorite theme. There's all these other ones that you can do as well. So if I get out of that, I can try install package, and you can search for things for linting, for example. Linting is basically code checking. There's millions of things that you can install. So it's very configurable, and I like it in that respect. Okay, and again, there's other things like snippets and regular expressions and so on, but we'll touch on those later in, again, a more relevant section. When it comes to general editing of web pages, another thing which I really like doing is actually just using the web developer tools, the tools that your browser actually gives you directly. So many people don't really use these or know how to use these very well. but they're very, very convenient. So say I'm on anantech.com, I can either right click and go inspect element, I can hit F12, I can open the menu and find web developer tools. You can see all the shortcuts here. Control Shift K is the one I usually use. That comes up like this. Usually I would have this on a second screen, and make use of those screens, but otherwise you can actually pin it to the side here. This is one situation where having a large monitor like the one I have at the moment is very, very useful. What you can do is go to the inspector, and I can actually look at the page code. I can inspect the styles for the various sections, and I can actually do live changes to figure out what might, how to get to what I want. And this is really good for live previewing things. So say here, for example, I can inspect that. I kind of want that background. How do I get to that? Header top, for example. We can see the background here. I can turn it on and off for these actual pieces of text here. What have we got? A list. Here we see font size 18 pixels. I can actually make this bigger. I can make this smaller. I can do all these various things. I can take the entire body, and I can probably change like the minimum width and make it ridiculous so that it's huge. There we go. You can make all of these changes live. Very, very useful for that. Okay, moving on. For coding and then doing cleanup afterward, there's various tools that you can use for that. For making code a bit more legible, I like using Dirty Markup, which is just a site that you can go to. For doing the opposite and compressing code and minifying it and making it smaller for performance reasons, I like using HTML compressor. So let's do an actual example of that. Let's take this page that we had before and open this. Also, you can add Open with Sublime Text to your context menu. I can't remember if this is automatic anymore. I've probably added it manually. You can Google to figure that out. So if I open this, and I put him over here, and I copy this, and I paste this in here, I can compress this. I'm going to collapse. What I want to do. Where are my options? There are my options. Here's my various options here for compressing. I'm going to compress. You can see the result there. You can see the actual result here. I might do that again. Let's do single line output, for example. Let's not strip quotes, and go. Here you can see single line HTML input. This is very annoying. If you were to bring this into Sublime Text and paste it in here, this is very annoying to actually edit. How would you deal with this? Two ways. First of all, copy this, go into Dirty Markup, paste it in here. You can see it's single line output. That's annoying. We can say it's HTML. I want to clean it up with these settings. Hit clean. There you go. Paste it back in, and it'll be relatively similar. There may have been a few changes given the actual the way that they actually compress and format things. The other thing you could do is actually just use Sublime Text, right? So if I hit Control Shift P and go to install package, what I want is some sort of prettifier, I suppose. So I'll search for pretty. What have I got? HTML, CSS, JS, prettifier. Let's try that one. So I'll install that. Wait a moment for it to finish. Successfully installed. How do I use it? It's probably in a menu somewhere. So tools, there it is. Prettify, Control Shift H. There we go. So that prettified it, and back it went. And we can probably minify as well, maybe. No, it's only prettified, but maybe we want to minify as well for actually outputting and uploading, because the pages we put online, we want to make them as high performance as possible. So we generally want to actually compress and minify things as much as possible. Minifier. So I have no idea which one in here is actually the best. Let's try HTML minify. HTML minifier. Let's do that one. Installed. Tools, developer, what have we got? Minify, current HTML5, modify existing, Control Alt Shift M, Control Alt Shift M. Do I have to select it all? Okay, let's try doing that actually directly. That is not even doing anything. How annoying. Anyway, let's try another one. Minify, CSS and JS. Minify. Okay, I don't know if there's any HTML ones. I'll leave it to you guys to figure that out. You can use HTML compressing anyway. Who cares? Okay, moving on. CSS generators. So you're probably going to be using buttons and calls to action and various things. There's a lot of different generators out there. Just Google CSS generator. You'll find so many. There's none which I prefer over any other. Here's an example, CSS3 button generator. Essentially, you can just make a button, play with the actual values for it, play with the box, play with everything. Say I want a shadow, and I can change the shadow in various ways. And then all it does is actually generates the CSS code for you for the button and the hover, which you can then use in your page. Cool. For gradients, I'm in love with gradients. There's a lot of nice platforms that generate nice gradients for you. Again, just Google these. I'll provide some links. UI gradients is really nice. You can go to see all gradients if you want ideas for colors on web pages and things, or even buttons. Here you go. This is a really good site for that. Is there anything that I like from here? I kind of like purples and reds. I like this. Twitch, this is a nice one. Okay, moving on. Page testing. So in the same vein as improving the performance of your actual pages and all of that, and testing things, there's various tools that you can use. Pingdom is probably one of the most common for testing your pages. So you can put something in here, or let's actually use another one of the sites. Let's put this in here, choose a test server, Australia, hit start test, away it goes, starts getting results. There's various other tools you can use. GTmetrix is actually a very good one. There's some inception going on there. GTmetrix tends to give you a lot more data on how to actually improve that page. Here you can see the Pingdom results. It gives you various suggestions, cool. And it gives you this thing here called a waterfall, which shows you the sequence of resources loading and how long those may have taken. Right, as for GTmetrix, let's have a look at what it actually gives us here. Similar thing, gives us a score, page load time, page size, and all these various actual suggestions for improving it. We can go to waterfall to again see the resources loading and all of the URLs and so on. This kind of stuff is indispensable for understanding how fast your site is actually loading. There's various other services that you can use as well. When it comes to monitoring the uptime of your actual pages and making sure that you know if something goes down, which is very, very important. You need to be aware of any issues with your pages, which might result in you funneling a lot of money to a black hole, to a page that doesn't even work. I mean, usually you'll try to fix things as soon as possible so that you don't have to actually power down campaigns, which can be quite disruptive, but obviously you need to know. For that, there's various things you can use. On your server side, you can actually have New Relic, but it's not the best for actual external uptime monitoring. For that, I recommend something like Site 24/7 or Monitus, which can have very aggressive actual uptime monitoring in the sense that if your page goes down for 3 minutes for like 3 consecutive checks, it can text you and call you and email. I've had calls at 4 in the morning with a robot waking me up saying your site at so-and-so has not been responding for 12 minutes. And I'm like, what do you want? Who are you? And it takes me a while to realize it's an automated downtime service. But for that, yeah, I really like Site 24/7. So continuing on with page testing. Again, there's a lot of things involved in making sure that your pages are optimal. One of the main things people deal with is responsiveness of the pages. The other thing is cross-compatibility, making sure that the pages actually display as you intend, on different browsers and devices. Of course, there's performance and so on, but performance is kind of a completely different issue to browser compatibility. Now, for browser compatibility, the first thing I suggest is know your market. Actually know what browsers are being used. There's no point optimizing things for Internet Explorer 8 if 0.03% of the population actually uses that browser. It's a complete waste of your time. For this, I recommend you go to StatCounter and go to the Global Stats section, and you can essentially look at the predominance of browsers in your country. So say I'm doing desktop traffic, I can look at desktop traffic only, I want to look at just the overall browser, and I can go to, say, what country should we look at? Let's go to France. And see what we actually have here. We don't care about much of the history. Let's look at the last 3 months. Like, who cares what people were using a year ago, right? We care about what people are using now and what those trends might be. So once this graph actually loads, which I'm hoping will happen in a few nanoseconds, here we go. So you can see that Chrome has the market share of about 50% exactly, and then we have Firefox, and then we have IE. And then Safari. So obviously that's probably on Mac, right? So you could say, at least 10% of the population are using Macs. So 75% or so are using Chrome and Firefox, which means if your page design works on those, you've got kind of 3/4 of the market covered already. We can break it down to browser version and actually combine Chrome and things. When it comes to browser version, we care about IE, right? Chrome version 48 and 49 and 50 and 51, they don't really differ that much, but IE 10 and 11 and Edge, they definitely do. So let's remove Chrome and Firefox for the moment and just show IE. You can see IE 11 at the top. We remove that. IE 11 has quite good compatibility in terms of the actual presentation of pages, so it's not a huge issue to worry about. We can get rid of that. We can get rid of Edge because that will be even better. And leave IE 8, 9, and 10. Let's get rid of these other ones for the moment. You can see that IE 10 is at the bottom here with like 0.66%. So it's obviously, don't even bother thinking about anything before IE 11. It's just not going to matter. When it comes to Safari, what have we got? Safari 9, Safari 9.1, Safari 8, 5.1, I don't even know what that's on. Mobile, I guess. Here we go. We have Safari 9.1, 5%. Safari 8, we have 0.8%. So it's likely that most people are on Safari 9 and above, so you would only really care about that. Okay, the other thing you can look at is screen resolution, which is kind of useful to understand, to know what kind of devices are probably dominating in your country. What have we got? 1366 by 768, small laptops tend to kind of dominate. And then we have HD actual screens, 1080 screens. And then we have the kind of larger laptop panel resolution, and so on. So you can kind of get a feel for what is actually dominating. We'll get rid of all of these. 1280 by 1024 is about 5%. Let's get rid of that. So almost everyone is on a kind of 16 by 9 or so basis with relatively decent size screen. So you wouldn't design for anything really below a 1200 by 800, which is quite a substantial amount actually, almost 10%. You'd probably design for 1280 by 800 to at least work, because that's a significant percentage of the people there. Okay, moving on. In terms of compatibility checking and seeing what things look like on different browsers, you're going to need tools like Browser Stack, for example. So you can use something like Browser Stack or cross-browser testing to actually automatically generate screenshots with a lot of different versions of operating systems and browsers. It's really kind of an indispensable tool in that respect. If you go to modern.ie, you can actually test things for Internet Explorer for free through Browser Stack. So if I go to generate screenshots, I believe I can put a website in here. Let's put in tools@pingdom.com and do that. And it will actually start generating screenshots in here for free. It'll take X amount of time. I'm not really going to wait for that. Now, when it comes to actual emulation and looking at what things look like in a different device, that's where you need things like Browser Stack Live, or cross-browser testing has emulation as well. There's a lot of various tools that you can use for that. Mobilizer, Keynote, Mite, which I think is mobile integration testing environment or something like that. There's various tools that you can use. Generally, I don't like emulation because I find it really, really slow. When you're in Chrome and Firefox, when it comes to responsiveness, you don't necessarily need to use browser screenshot tools or anything like that. There's plenty of tools within browsers and extensions that allow you to do this. So if I go to just firefox.com, for example, if I want to look at what this page looks like on different screen sizes, it's very simple. I can just change this non-maximized screen, and I can actually just do this, right? And I can see how it kind of changes as I get past this actual width here. There's something called a breakpoint at that width. An even easier way to do that is to actually use the responsiveness tools within your browser. For Firefox, hit Control-Shift-M, and there we go. You can do this within here. This is much easier to actually work with, and you can set the specific sizes directly in here. And say I can see where that exact breakpoint is. There's one there at 480, and then there's one, where is it? There, at 760, right? So that's all fine. You can do that in Chrome as well. In Chrome, I believe you can hit open the web developer tools. Again, right-click, inspect, or look at the actual menu, wherever it is, find web developer tools. I'm going to inspect. I'm going to somehow pop this over here, and then, how do I pin it to the side? There we go. This button here actually toggles the device toolbar, which lets you do a similar thing in terms of previewing on various devices, or you can go responsive and you can just change it yourself. It's up to you. I like the Firefox version a lot better. I like Firefox's web developer tools in general better. One really cool extension for Chrome, which is cool for responsiveness, is Emmet Review, which you can see here. This is really cool for actually showing you the page display on various widths simultaneously. So if I click that, what it does is actually shows me the views on all the breakpoints that this page has defined. So this is part of the page's actual code. It has specific changes at these various widths. And you can see here, min 550 pixel, min 380, so those are their breakpoints. You can see these along here. What's really cool is that when I scroll, it actually shows me, it kind of synchronizes the position, which is really, really cool. It's kind of indispensable for seeing things in parallel. And you can go to, yep, all is fine, get out of there. You can go to a device wall, and you can, for example, look at all the iPhones and basically show it on the various iPhone widths. It actually reloads the pages with those widths initially, because sometimes pages will deliver things differently initially, but they won't respond when you're just changing the browser width. And here we go. This is what it looks like on all of the iPhones. This isn't as accurate as an emulator or doing it on a real device, but it's very, very cool to actually have something like that. Okay, the last thing that I wanted to mention on the note of page testing and these kinds of things is Random Agent Spoofer, or however you want to say that. It's a Firefox add-on which lets you change the user agent and headers of your actual device. So you can see the actual add-on here. It's only in Firefox, I believe. Once you install it, it adds a cool little menu icon up here. I'm currently on my real profile. Everything is kind of disabled, right? Now let's say I go to speedtest.net, and here it has my IP at the moment. What I can do is actually change my profile to change the type of browser that it thinks I'm on, as well as actually try and mimic a different IP address. So let's go to what's my IP address, right? And what's my user agent. Here it says I'm on Firefox 41. Let's say I change my profile to Windows browser and I go to Opera 30, for example. You can see here it says this profile's changed. This is now gone blue. What happens when I refresh? There we go. It says my user agent is completely different. If I go here, Firefox 41, There we go. So it's clearly fooling that, right? What I can also do is go to headers, and I can try and spoof my IP address. And if I do this, does it fool this one? No, it does not. Does it fool this one? No, it does not. But what about speed test? Here you can see that it has. Now, many of you will be wondering, well, what the hell is the point of that? One of the coolest things about that is that this will only trick some systems, but what it can do is trick ad servers. What this means is that you can actually look at ads on, say you go to a website and you have certain ads which are served to you. And they're served to you based on your geography and where you might be in the world, right? Or even your browser. What you can do is emulate a different IP and a different browser, refresh, and the system might serve you different ads. This can kind of let you spy and do your own research without having to connect to tools which would otherwise slow down your connection and just make things a lot more annoying to do. So in that sense, it's really, really cool. Now, moving on with technical tools and emulation, which I don't really like browser emulation because I find it very slow. But if you're doing app installs with things like Android and iOS, at various points you really need to be able to emulate an Android device and understand what happens when you install an app, or understand the conversion flow and actually test it properly. For Android emulation, Handy Andy is the best Android emulator that I've seen. Just check it out at andyroid.net or Google it. It is great. There's a few others, but this one in my experience is the best. Another thing which is very, very useful is using something like AirDroid to be able to pass things directly to your Android device. So things like links or files or actual browser related stuff. So you can kind of control your Android phone from within your browser on your PC or your laptop or whatever, which is obviously a lot faster, right? It's a lot easier to copy and paste a link and a tracking link directly in your browser than to try and write it on your phone. There's, again, various apps for this. I really like AirDroid. If you're using iOS, I believe that there is no emulators available like Handy Andy. So you're kind of out of luck, but you can either use a real device or you can use something like BrowserStack and use their emulation, which personally I find really, really slow. In terms of AirDroid, there's again probably various other apps that you can use. One of the ones that I know of is QPush, which again just lets you synchronize and push data between your laptop and your whatever you're using and your iPhone to essentially speed things up and stop wasting time trying to write in links manually. Now, I mentioned random agent spoofer before and how it helps you emulate being from a different IP address. If you actually want to be using a different IP address, then you need a VPN or a virtual private network tool or app. There's a lot that you can actually use. The point of using these is to look like you're from another country because your connection is actually routing through another country. This is absolutely indispensable for testing your tracking links, testing your affiliate links specifically to understand how that actual redirection goes about and to see whether the redirection depends on the actual country that your IP indicates that you are from. There's a lot of different tools you can use. There's Overplay, HideMask, Pro, Astral, Pure VPN, and so on. In my experience, I like Viper VPN, and we actually have some discounts available for you on that. And Overplay is probably the only other one I've used where I kind of found the connection to be very, very fast. I like to connect and disconnect very quickly. I don't really care about the speed I get too much because I'm not really going to sit on them very long. So anyway, Viper VPN is the tool I would recommend for that. Check it out in the vendor spotlight. Another tool, which I'll mention, which is kind of useful, is WinHT-Track. So this is for essentially leeching and copying websites. There's a lot of tools for this. This tool is just simple and it works. If you're using Mac, then I believe SiteSucker is an alternative that you will probably want to explore. We'll get into this later, but you can go explore this tool and figure out how it works. Now, and yes, this is SiteSucker. Okay, so we're getting to the tail end here of various tools that I want to show you. The next one I wanted to mention is TeamViewer. Many of you already know TeamViewer and know what it is and what it does. It's essentially for remote control of other computers. If you're going to have to do tech support for anyone or show anyone anything, it's just much easier to use something like TeamViewer and show them directly or fix things directly. For example, your mum rings you and says she has a problem with the computer, trying to explain things, you have no idea what they're talking about, they don't know how to actually explain it. The solution, just use something like TeamViewer and go and do it yourself. It really is great for that. And in the past, I've used TeamViewer for various more interesting things, like having my computer on standby at home when I'm at university, and have this configuration where I can send something called a magic packet to that computer, where I can basically ping it from anywhere in the world, and a little sort of signal hits my router, goes to my PC, and it's configured to actually wake up from standby when it receives that, and then it's automatically logged into TeamViewer and I can remote control it. So that's really easy, really cool if you want to have remote access to your computer at any time, but you don't want to have it just sitting there permanently on. You can do these sorts of things to kind of automate and streamline the way you actually do that. So yeah, it's really great for that and very, very efficient. Moving on, productivity. So in terms of time management and productivity, one tip I can give you is be concise and don't talk for too long. Unfortunately, I'm very, very good at that, hence why this video is probably getting really, really long. Anyway, moving on. At the moment, I think if you're not using any specific productivity and checklist tools and so on, there's probably no reason to just completely move to something else and use something else. Or sorry, if you've already kind of got something established, don't just disrupt everything based on my suggestions. Investigate them and figure out if it actually works out well for you. But if you do have no current setup, you're not really managing tasks that well, I have a few suggestions. The first one is Todoist. Now, Todoist is just kind of a simple task list app. That's all it really does, but it's very, very good at it. I find it very, very effective at making it easy for me to actually just put a task down, set a reminder, and then actually get it done, right? And if you pay for premium, which is like $10, you can actually have it send you SMSs, mobile push notifications, almost everything to make sure that you remember to do that thing. It has a lot of different apps, so it has browser-based apps, it has apps for Windows and OS X, for Android and iOS. It even has add-ons for things like Mailbird, the email client that I mentioned. So I currently kind of use it through that rather than anything else. For things like note-taking, just use something like Evernote. For tasks in general, you could use any number of things like Trello, Wrike, Redbooth, Asana, Wunderlist. There's all of these different things that you can use. It's up to you to really find out what fits your style. When it comes to managing the times of tasks and appointments and things, if you're using Google Calendar already, I highly suggest you check out Sunrise Calendar. It's essentially just a calendar user interface that connects with a number of different calendars in the background. So you can connect it with multiple Google calendars, with Facebook for birthdays and events, with your productivity tools like Todoist and Trello and so on. You can connect it with almost everything, and it's really great for that. And the actual user interface and the app itself it's a lot more pleasant than something like Google Calendar. Right, last but not least, I wanted to mention your eyes. So this is something that a lot of people don't really think about, but something you will find is very, very common amongst full-time affiliate marketers. They tend to be quite concerned with ergonomics and health, whether it be things like fitness and eating well, or having an ergonomic chair, or like me, having like a standing desk set up. And another thing which often gets overlooked but is very important is your eyes. Now, if you're hustling and you're working on a computer for very, very long hours, and especially at night, it's very easy to actually get eye strain and to get quite sore eyes. For this, I recommend getting Flux, which is available for Windows and Mac and so on. what Flux does is just changes the actual color profile of your monitor based on the time of day. It coordinates with your time zone and knows the actual sunrise and sunset. When the sun starts setting, it starts making your screen more yellow. At night, the really blue, the blue light from your monitor kind of is more likely to cause eye strain. If you make it more yellow, it's generally more pleasant on the eyes and it's just kind of softer, right? What Flux does is just kind of ramps up the yellow intensity by reducing the amount of blue, and honestly you don't even really notice it. But if you then turn off Flux late at night, the monitor feels like it's trying to actually burn through your eyes. You don't really realize just how bright and intense your monitor is at almost all times until you use a tool like this. So highly recommended. Go and check it out. Life will never be the same. Just be aware that if you're doing color sensitive work, you might want to be aware of that, like making ads, for example. It's going to distort the actual appearance of the ads to you, so you might not actually be making things in the way that you want. The last thing I want to mention on eyesight is Gunnar glasses. So this is kind of nerdy, but these are kind of made for gamers. The kind of esports scene, having people who are using computers for work professionally and for gaming, they kind of want to get every competitive advantage, right? Gunnar glasses were kind of made for gamers who want to reduce eye strain, who can't use something like Flux all the time. They don't want their screen to actually change color and things. They want something to protect their eyes though. Gunnar glasses are great for that. They're kind of just like a physical Flux app where the lenses are amber, they're yellow, and they reduce the amount of blue light getting to your eyes. I use them, they're great. They do actually reduce eye strain and make it a little bit easier to work on computers late at night. So check those out if you want to get something like that and be kind of nerdy. I feel like they don't really look that good. You can also get crystalline lenses which are clear for color sensitive work. It's up to you to test these things, but I can confirm that they are quite useful and quite cool. Right, that's all for now. Hopefully some of these tools have been really useful to you. I know I've gone over a lot and across a number of different areas. A lot of these tools we will probably revisit in later modules where we're actually using them. For example, landing page coding. But what I wanted to do was introduce just the broad spectrum of them now so that you can, within this introductory period, go and find them, go and test them, figure out what ones you may actually need to purchase, like Adobe Creative Cloud, for example. On that note, that's something I completely forgot, but you can get 30-day trials of all of the Adobe apps through Creative Cloud. So if you're thinking, I don't want to pay for a subscription to use Photoshop, I want to use a free tool instead, you can get it free for 30 days. So there is zero reason not to do that. Go and get Creative Cloud at the end of this module if you don't already. That is kind of my one directive and imperative there. Okay, so hopefully again some of these have been useful to you and hopefully some of them will streamline the way you operate and improve your productivity and how efficiently you do things, especially within your affiliate.